What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome to Around the Burgh. We're coming to you live after the Steelers' first game of the season, which turned out to be a 23-16 win on the road at the Buffalo Bills. I'm Mitchell Wolfe, your host, and I'll introduce my co-host, Shayne Kubas. Shayne, we're 1-0. How about it?
Hey, I've never been more happy to be wrong about
Yeah.
something that we said, because clearly I don't know if we necessarily underestimated the Steelers, but I think we underestimated how bad the Bills offense might look against our defense again, seeing them for a third time in a row. So
Right.
definitely a lot to unpack here for sure.
Right. So like you said, a lot to unpack. It was a pretty complex game. So we're going to jump right into the analysis. So obviously for most of the first half, the Steelers offense was really struggling. They seemed to not be acclimated to the Matt Canada offense. The run game was non-existent. Ben Roethlisberger was not throwing accurate passes. And it was very reminiscent, as I was saying, of the offense from the end of the last year's regular season, and very much like the Colts game from that year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is the type of stuff that we've been worried about, is especially the way the offensive line played, getting really no push in the run game, making it very, telling that we're going to have to throw the football if we want to move the ball. And we didn't try to push the ball down the field still, even knowing that fact. It was still a lot of the screen short passes. Some of them got some good yardage occasionally, but we could not consistently move the football with that. So we really struggled in that first half.
For sure. And the saving grace was the defense. They were playing incredibly, specifically the edge rushers, namely TJ Watt, fresh off of his massive deal, which I'm not sure we'll get into the full specifics of that today, but maybe on our later in the week episode. But he was playing like a man possessed. He obviously had that chase down sack of Allen for a strip sack. Yep. He had at least one other one.
Yeah, at the end of the game.
Yeah, he was hurrying Allen all day. The Ingram and Highsmith were getting pressure as well. They were generating holds. I mean, that was just really fun to just watch the front four guys just absolutely tee off on an offensive line that, for the most part, seems solid, but definitely, was exposed today, I thought.
Yeah, you could tell that unit's very experienced, and you can tell from some of the stuff they were doing. Allen did have a few plays where he had all the time in the world to make a throw down the field, and he just wasn't hitting them, and that was really what helped us. The coverage was really good as well for the most part, especially on that flea flicker play where Sutton broke up that Diggs pass. That could have been a big play in the game.
Yeah, Cam Sutton, even though he was the one defender that gave up the touchdown, he had an incredible game.
Yeah,
and even
on
that play, like the announcer was saying, like, this is just a perfect pass from Allen. Like, Sutton has great coverage. It's just Allen being an elite player and, putting the ball where only his receiver could catch it and where Sutton couldn't make a play. But generally, sorry, we might get some residual background noise from our web pages in the background, so I apologize for that. But anyways, I thought that the secondary was also extremely good because, like we talked about last week, the Bills' offense is very pass happy. They're going to try to throw the ball down the field, and the Steelers really limited their ability to create explosive plays throughout the whole game. They forced a lot of dinks and dunks, which occasionally they missed some tackles. The Bills receivers are pretty elusive, but they were mostly able to get the guys down, force Allen into third downs. And granted, they were able to convert some, but basically when the Steelers were really needed the stop, they were able to get it.
And that was the theme all day. Like you said, there was some moments where they got, some drives going into that 50, 40-yard range. And then as soon as they hit the outskirts of the field goal range, stuff just shut down. They could not move the football consistently. They abandoned the run game for most of the day, which I thought was interesting considering the way Singletary was running. Looked a lot better than he did last year. So the defense definitely had that bend, don't break mentality for a while there. And outside of the red zone possession, like you said, that Davis scored on Sutton on that great play. And that's where Allen is at his best. He's great in the red zone. Both as a runner and a passer. So outside of that, they really shut down. Once they got into that scoring area-ish close to it, they just buckled up and didn't let anything happen.
Right. And I think a big part of that is something didn't happen that we anticipated happening, and that's we didn't really see the Keith Butler special.
Yeah,
we saw the defense come out in their nickel and dime packages, play the pass first. And, Devin Bush and Joe Schobert had really good games. Like, I think Devin Bush tied for the lead in tackles on the team. Neither of them were matched up on Cole Beasley or Isaiah McKenzie ever. So, that was really good that, the Steelers finally said, hey, we might need to change the way we attack things on defense.
Yeah, a big thing too, and this is something I talked about in an article I did for the Steel Curtain about 4 players to watch out for on the Bills. They kept Diggs to about half as many yards as he had last year in last year's game, even though he still had 9 catches. They were not letting him get open down the field. They were making him catch those 5, 6, 7 yard passes and tackling them. that was a big part of the game, because if he could have broken away a couple of those short passes, or if he could have gotten over the top on Sutton or someone else a couple of times, that would have been enough to probably push them over the edge. But they made sure that they did not let him beat them.
Exactly. So Steelers go into the half 10-0.
Yeah.
Every drive in the first half, except for the kneel down at the end, they punt.
Yeah.
In the second half, the Steelers are able to score on every drive, most of them field goals, I'll say that. But what did you think of the Steelers offense in the second half of the game and how they were able to turn it around?
Well, really, the biggest difference I saw is there was enough push on the offensive line now for where the run game wasn't a complete non-factor. Harris finally got a few gains of over 2 yards, and also just a couple of creative plays. We saw the end around with, or the reverse with Chase.
All right. So the Steelers punt on all their drives in the first half, excluding their final drive, which was a kneel down. In the second half, they come back and they're able to score on every single drive. So Shayne, what did you see in the second half that allowed the Steelers to get their offensive performance turned around?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the offensive line improved at least a little bit, especially with their push in the run game. We saw Harris get that 9-yard carry coming out of halftime, had another bigger carry to get us in the red zone later on in the game. And just overall, we started to move away from the short passing game as far as those, quick screens and 2-yard plays, and finally started to hit some of those middle of the field plays. We had one to Freiermuth for the 24-yard gain. Nice to see him get involved a little bit. Ebron had the really nice catch on the tough play where he got hit as well for 19 yards on the third down. And then the biggest play to me, the thing that we really need to see more of, if we're not going to throw the ball far down the field, we at least need to get vertical a little bit. And there's that 22-yard catch by Claypool. He jumped over White and was able to get the ball for him. So just more stuff down the field, and more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage for sure.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because in the first half, it was weird. Like the first play, they came out, they did that tackle tight end exchange thing that Matt Canada is in love with. They ran a cursory jet sweep. They had a few more jet sweeps, but there wasn't really a lot of that Canada stuff that we anticipated. It was a lot of shotgun quick passes, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
In the second half, they really actually leaned into the Canada stuff, and I thought it worked for the most part.
Yeah.
They had that, obviously, like you said, the reverse to Claypool. They had that fun little play where they faked the reverse to Juju.
Yeah.
And then they threw it at the screen back the same way. Just a lot more creative stuff. And I thought that's kind of what opened it up. And then we saw the Bills really go into a single high with man coverage on the outside. And then Ben really did start to take those shots. They're not going to hit every time. The one time it's incomplete. The other time he's able to draw a big pass interference penalty. He draws a holding another time. And like we kind of both talked about, is they did start trying to really attack that Levi Wallace matchup, which that's where how Deontay Johnson, shout out Deontay for getting his revenge game after last year's debacle. Yeah. But that was the matchup that we expected them to exploit, and eventually did that. And they were even able to get Tre'Davious White a few times, which was pretty surprising.
Yeah, he had a few plays where he wasn't able to make a play on the ball. And I think the biggest thing that they need to do, like you said, is with the Canada offense, with what he's known for doing, he has to lean into it. I don't know if maybe he was trying to ease things in. Maybe they're still not 100% of the way there as far as getting acclimated to everything. But even if that's the case, I would rather them try all those things, be creative with it, than just let what happened the end of last year happen again. So I hope to see more of what we saw in the second half earlier in the game and just continue on throughout the season. So
right. So we saw the Steelers have a few drives with their field goals. They get that touchdown, Deontay Johnson. And then following that, they're able to get a blocked punt touchdown, which was very exciting. That's kind of where I had my moment of exuberance where I leapt off the couch and started yelling. But, the game started inauspiciously with the kickoff coverage unit allowing a big return to get the Colts into the red zone immediately. And our king, Presley Harvin, did shank a punt, which was sad.
I mean, he for the most part, I thought he was good, though.
Yeah, but then Danny Smith, his he gets his one thing of redemption that he's able to get a touchdown on special teams, which was, I think that really kind of killed the momentum for the Bills in general.
It did. It really changed the game because, getting the ball down, 13-10, they feel pretty good about being able to at least get in the field goal range, tie it up. You get that punt block. Now you're going to need 2 scores just to get back in the game. Tough.
Yeah. And then after that, the teams pretty much traded field goals, but the Steelers were able to kill some clock in their final drive with some big throws by Ben on third downs to Juju and Claypool to kind of extend that drive and just keep killing the clock and get the Bills to burn their timeouts. Steelers kick a field goal to go up by 2 scores. Bills get the ball back. They're able to drive not only the field goal, but eventually it just takes too long. And, that was we saw the Steelers defense kind of go into quote prevent in that they were just like no big plays. And again, they were just able to rely on their pass rush, which just kept getting home to Allen. And one of the drives the Bills did lean into running the ball, and they went right down the field. I think it was after the block punt, which is kind of surprising. But I think it's because the Steelers were so heavily anticipating the pass game. But I mean, the stats are going to look weird because the Bills, statistically at least, it looks like they dominated the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Steelers come away with a victory on the road against a presumed AFC favorite.
And I think we might see a couple games like this where, from a statistical output standpoint, the other team looks like they did a much better job on offense than us. But realistically, not really.
So right now, the stock couldn't be higher in the Steelers, but I want to talk to you about Symbol, which is the stock market for sports, where you can buy and sell virtual shares of your favorite teams using real money. Each time your team wins, you earn a win payout. If your team loses, you lose nothing. Symbol offers trading for the NFL, NBA, and MLB, with college football coming this fall. Visit www.symbol.app today and use promo code SteelersATB to earn a $10 deposit bonus on your first deposit. That's www.symbol.app. Visit there today. All right, so we're going to give our 3 stars of the game. Obviously a pretty good performance up and down the board. So, Shayne, I'll kick it to you to give your, I guess in the parlance, it's the 3rd star for the least most outstanding player.
This is a tough one just because I feel like it's hard for me to even want to look at the offense and give anybody anything because really outside of a couple key plays here and there, no one really stood out on offense. I think for the 3rd star, a guy that we didn't expect to get much out of, or that I wasn't expecting to play as much as he did, I think Trey Norwood had a really good game.
Yeah,
really good, especially early on. A couple of those plays he made a really good impact at playing that slot role and playing on those dime packages, especially.
Yeah, and he was doing a lot of stuff on, both as safety and at corner. And the Bills definitely targeted him early, like, okay, this is the guy we're going to attack. And he really showed up. He was able to make some tackles, get some passes broken up, and definitely just not be a liability on the back end. For my 3rd star, I'll give it to Ben Roethlisberger. Okay. Mostly just because of how kind of poorly he started. And this is something that I've talked about a lot with various people. I think there's something about Ben where he just really struggles at the beginning of games, whether he's jittery or nervous or whatever. He always sails like the first few passes high. It's part of the reason why the Steelers haven't had an opening drive touchdown in 2 seasons, which is crazy. Yeah. But he missed that initial quick throw to Deontay in the flat where he was wide open, could have got the first down. He just airmailed it over him. He did the same thing to Najee in the red zone. But it obviously wasn't Ben's best statistical game, but in the second half, when it really mattered, he was able to come through. He was able to sit in the pocket, make his reads and make good decisions, which, that's something that when I started writing my recap of the game, when the game was going poorly, one of my key things was Ben needs to play better. And as I'm writing that, he's doing exactly that. So
he
I'll take it. He was exactly. Attention. All right. Who is your 2nd star?
My 2nd star, I feel like, just because of some of the, not even statistically speaking, but some of the things I saw him do, Melvin Ingram is going to be such a huge impact for this defense. Just the strength he plays with, and the one play where he basically nearly sacked Allen while being held, like just the strength he plays with. He's such a good contrast to the, more of the finesse from Highsmith, where he's the faster guy, he's going to get off the edge quicker, but Ingram comes in and gives them a different look. That combination next to Watt, especially, if Ingram and him can play together occasionally, is just going to be a lot for offenses to deal with. And it was today.
Right. And I think, so something we might have mentioned is that the Steelers forced a ton of holding penalties. The Bills had 8 penalties for 81 yards. At least 4 of those, I think, were holds.
I think at least 4. It might have been 5. Linemen.
Yeah. So
it was crazy.
Not necessarily creating sacks, but they were able to, because there were times where the Bills would make a big play, but then it would have to come back due to a hold. So that was something that was really good to see. I'm going to go with the other quote backup edge rusher, Alex Highsmith, who had maybe not as big of a game statistically as TJ Watt or Melvin Ingram, but you could see how he is developing into he's going to be one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. And I think I said something to the effect of, if you just had Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith, that would be one of the more above average edge rusher duo in the NFL. Right, but then you have those guys as rotational players of opposite, arguably probably the best edge defender in the NFL. And they were just able to consistently wreak havoc on the Bills offensive line and the offense in general. So before we move on to the first star, I'm just going to propose that we just take this one jointly because I think we both are picking the same guy.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I mean,
and it's just, well, I'll let you go because I'll wrap up anything you might have missed, which I don't think you will. But it's pretty obvious that this was like TJ Watt was the far and away MVP of this game.
They paid the man. He showed up. Everyone, even myself, I was a little worried about how much is he going to play, how's he going to look week one, not getting a full training camp, and he threw all that out the window very quickly. Mm-hmm. Clearly was the best player on the field a lot of the time, and realistically, this is why he's getting paid this amount of money. The impact he has just individually, I think people started kind of underestimate it a little bit with the way that once Dupree went down and Highsmith wasn't the same caliber of player as him as far as an impact, and Watt was still doing very well, but maybe not on the same pace. People started to wonder, is he as good as he actually is? This game showed exactly the type of player he is, coming off of not even really playing at all since the Browns game, and just showing up and being one of the best players in the NFL still.
Absolutely. And he had 2 sacks, one with the forced fumble. He had at least 1 tackle for loss, and was a very solid player in run defense. One thing that they did a lot with him, which I really like when they do, is they'll like put him basically inside linebacker.
Yeah, they moved him around
which messes up the offensive line's run scheme. Like they kind of need to reassess where they're going. And obviously he's just a game wrecker. So even if the offensive line executes it perfectly, he's going to probably beat, especially with the Bills guards who aren't some of the best players on their team, he's able to beat them and make some plays in the backfield. And I'm sure that there are some people in the Pittsburgh media who are going to be like, why isn't he playing every single snap? Because he came out on some snaps. And
we haven't seen him play any games since the Browns playoff game.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't get any snaps in the preseason. Not that he would have gotten a lot anyway, but he wasn't a full participant in training camp because he was waiting for his deal. And he came out and still made huge impacts on the game, even without having a full workload. You can't ask for anything more, and this is why you pay him as the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL.
Exactly. And to those people who think that, I would say, well, would you rather have a TJ Watt that's at like 50% in terms of his like stamina? If you think about this kind of in Madden terms, if his fatigue is up, would you rather have him at 50% or rotate in 100% Melvin Ingram or Alex Highsmith?
Right.
And then you get, 2 guys who are like fully ready to go. Or you could argue maybe a 60% or 70% TJ Watt is equal to that. But I'd rather have him get recovered on a play than come back in and be 100% again really quickly. And I just, I'm sure there are people who are going to say stuff like that. And it's just,
I bet. Yeah, that's what happens.
Ridiculous.
We're used to it.
All right. So we gave our stars, but let's go over maybe like one thing we really want to see the Steelers improve on next week. And I think for me, it's definitely the running game. And I think Najee Harris, I think he's going to get a little guff from the media again this week because he wasn't super productive, but the offensive line wasn't great for the first half and even somewhat into the second, but he ran with incredible toughness. Even if he was hitting in the backfield, he was getting back to the line of scrimmage for no gain. He was pushing forward for extra yards. And again, it's his first NFL action. So there were times like he tried a Le'Veon play where he just stopped and tried to bounce it and couldn't get there. And there were several plays like that. He made that missed catch where he didn't turn around quick enough. Right. He was solid in pass protection, which was great.
Yeah, it's good to see.
And they moved him around a lot as a receiver. But, it's very clear that he has the right attitude moving forward. So I think obviously we need to wait for the offensive line to gel a little bit. I'm hoping they can improve. And I just hope that Najee doesn't catch as much flack as he might get.
Yeah, unfortunately, we kind of know when a player has the type of performance statistically that Harris had, people are going to look at it, especially when there's a lot of people really hyping him up. And I think that he didn't disappoint me at all outside of a couple of the mental mistakes, like with the pass and everything else. But you could tell just from a physical standpoint, he was doing everything that he possibly could to gain yards on the ground. The offensive line just was not performing for him. And I think it's going to continue to get better over time, especially the run blocking. It's just they're going to take some time to gel and get used to everything. But what I want to see next week, I want to see them attack down the field, even if it's not necessarily like the deep shots. Just give guys like Claypool a chance to go up and get the football. Give guys like Freiermuth in the red zone a chance to go up and get the football. I understand like having the quick passing game as an extension of the run game while they figure that out. Definitely, I want to see that if we need to use it, but it cannot be a crutch like it was last year. They have to at least make a concerted effort to hit those 10, 15, 20-yard shots when they can, and then also go down the field whenever they have the opportunity to.
Yeah. And, this isn't exactly an excuse, but this is a tough test for basically a
Yeah,
brand new offensive line.
it
It's
is.
not going to be easy. They obviously really struggled early on, but I think they were kind of able to settle in mostly in pass protection later in the game. But they flashed enough that I'm like, okay, this isn't catastrophic. It's not good, but it can improve. And regarding Ben and that kind of that attacking deeper downfield, I think that he displayed, obviously, people were kind of clowning him early with his lack of attacking deep and his lack of arm strength, but obviously, he didn't throw anything like super far down the field, but there were several throws where you could see he still had that zip on the ball. He fired
Yeah.
some middle of the field shots to Fryermuth, Ebron, Juju. We probably should have mentioned Juju had a very good game as well, as he pretty
Yeah,
much always does.
with the opportunities he was given,
Exactly.
he finally, like, they need to get more out of him as far as down the field, because I think he's a better player than a lot of people give him credit for in
Mhm.
that intermediate range, and even we've seen him be able to get deep on guys in the
For
past.
sure.
So
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, Ben's maybe, again, he doesn't have the Josh Allen arm where he can zip it 80 yards anywhere on the
right.
field, but he still has the ability to threaten the middle of the field and, throw some deep shots against one-on-one matchups, which he still likes to do, as you were saying. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Again, Steelers get away with a win, 23-16 at the Buffalo Bills. They'll be back next week at home against the Las Vegas Raiders, and we'll be back later this week discussing any more news we have from the week. We'll probably get into the details of the TJ Watt extension, and we'll preview the game against the Raiders. But in the meantime, Shayne, where can people find your work?
Again, you can find me at Shayne Kubas on Twitter. It's going to be trying to do some more stuff written wise for the ATB Steelers page here soon. You can see stuff like you said today. You put yours up as far as a recap, and you can also see stuff for me at Still Curtain.
Yep, and you can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, Wolfe on Twitter. Like Shayne mentioned, I mentioned earlier, I published my recap of the Steelers' victory against the Bills, and mostly just a narrative recap of the game. But if you missed anything, you can go there. But I'll probably be publishing a more in-depth breakdown of what allowed the Steelers to get the victory against the Bills this week. But in the meantime, we'll see you Steelers fans later this week when we break down the upcoming game. Have a good one.